Day 167 today, and this week, quite the focus on Vusimuzi Matlala upon his return here to the Madlanga Commission. And I'm joined now by our analyst for this morning, the founder and chairperson of Public Interest South Africa, Mr. Tebogo Khaas. Thanks so much for coming through.
It's my pleasure, and thank you for having me, Sakina.
You spent quite a lot of time here at the Commission, so what has been your overall assessment of Vusimuzi Matlala and his testimony so far?
Yeah, I try not to, but what better place to be in this world than at the Madlanga Commission, Bridget Mabandla Justice College, to listen to the testimony that, the gripping or riveting testimony that's unfolding. I mean, the last few days, if you look at the testimony of Matlala, he started very testy, cautiously. He wasn't giving much or asserting so many things that were unacceptable, if I may use that term. But as the days wore on, we saw him opening up, especially yesterday when he realized that he's got no fig leaf left for him to hide behind. He had to confront and deal with the issues, especially if it did not relate to what was already before court in terms of his criminal matters.
And of course, he did try to invoke his right not to self-incriminate, but the Commission, of course, pushing back hard and saying, unless you can actually prove that this matter is sub judice, we expect some answers.
No, absolutely. In fact, I recall yesterday even when Commissioner Baloyi actually made it clear to them that whatever aversions or submissions that they didn't make when the window was open for them, they cannot do it from the bar. In other words, the window for them to make any further submissions was closed. And in fact, it was very telling for the Commission to say we would help you assert your rights and we will support you support your rights. Section 35 is constitutional right, but you cannot abuse the fact that what we are seeking to shine a light on is not things that are before court, and you better answer us and answer us as truthful as you can. That's when he started hearing even the likes of, I can't remember, I don't know, but the probing became more and more intense, and we saw him opening up, especially yesterday.
And of course, pertaining to his relationship, this is Vusimuzi Matlala with Hangwani Morgan Maumela. And at first, as he and his legal team tried to invoke that right not to self-incriminate, they brought a submission before the Commission, which did not ultimately succeed. But there was a point where it was Commissioner Khumalo who asked about the companies, because on the list of companies in the document that they presented to the Commission, there were at least two companies that Vusimuzi Matlala then was a part of in that particular submission, but he did not mention those to the Commission previously. And that was interesting, just in terms, he did of course say that those companies were deregistered, but interesting in terms of what we might see going forward in terms of more companies that may come to light.
Yeah, he was very economical with some of the disclosures, especially related to his shareholding, current and past, as well as beneficial ownership of the entities where he may very well claim that they are no longer in operation, or he may not be cited as a director in those entities. And I think they were quick to remind him that, look, there is no doubt that you were very not outrightly open with your disclosure of all your shareholding or your directorship. But eventually it came true to everybody listening or watching that he was running out of the road insofar as his fibs or his smoke and mirror. He had to confront the fact that he was implicated in so many shady dealings through those entities, registered or not, and even the kind of money laundering allegations that seem to also have emerged in terms of how they were dealing with their so-called suppliers, their suppliers, insofar as the health tender is concerned, and how they were actually throwing in money into some account or supplier's account and drawing down from that, which is something very unusual in any business sense.
And of course, then the relationship with the late Jotham Mswazi Msibi. which is very interesting because he then also accepts that he was the one that introduced Umsibi and Maumela.
No, certainly, and you can see how instrumental he is to the whole COG. If there is indeed a cartel, Big Five cartel to be proven, you can see the role that he may have played. He may not have been the kingpin in the cartel, but he certainly was a mover and shaker or making things happen by bringing the likes of Maumela closer to Msibi, which we know that the intention was to actually make sure that businesses keep flowing and protection, if I may use that word, also is also conveyed or provided to those who go to a pilgrimage at the farm, at Msibi's farm. And I think the important role that he played cannot be minimized. And even if he tried to distance himself, it was very clear how close he was to Msibi, who even called him son. Not even cat or this and the other, but son. That is the kind of regard Msibi had when he treated him as his son. It wouldn't be surprising if he also harbored ambitions that as a son of Msibi, he may have had ambitions of stepping up to take up the role.
To be the heir.
To be the heir to the throne. So it is a significant role that he played.
So in saying that, are we then leaning towards Msibi having been the kingpin, so to speak, of the alleged Big Five cartel?
Yeah, and let us know. So I know I said this before when I was with you the last time. We also seem to be testifying from the grave. That's saying that dead men tell no tales. But he has been testifying because all the communication that they were able to uncover from his communications with Matlala and others is actually speaking on his behalf here. And Matlala has to account for his portion, at least, of what he had contributed in those WhatsApp and other communications that he had engaged with Msibi. And it also shows you the kind of leverage Msibi would have had on the political powers that be, insofar as how they respected him, not only respected him, how they feared him. If the then police minister, Bheki Cele, could even have such words of adulation or endurance and fear, ostensibly, from Msibi, it makes you and I worry as to what became or what could have become of our criminal justice system.
Msibi becomes a very interesting protagonist here because it seems as though allegedly he was at the top of this ring. But also, you look at who made those pilgrimages, as you so nicely put it, to the farm. You look at the political actors, you look at the business actors and lawyers, everyone who went to the farm. And who was Mswazi Msibi?
Who wouldn't want to make those pilgrimages if you knew that this man is capable of listening in on your conversation on your electronic devices? Because as we saw with the deal that they had made acquiring those listening devices from overseas, it means he also had one or at least some within at his disposal. So
allegedly,
I think you're right, and we must qualify it. But you would then imagine why the likes of Fikile Mbalula would congregate around him if someone. Even the allegations that National Commissioner Malema would allegedly be woken up in the middle of the night to go and visit with Msibi. Claims that, of course, Malema, I think, denied, but it shows you the level of control or fear that he had on his organization, if I may call it that, and how that fear filtered through the political elite. And some people were actually even too scared to even mention his name even in public, just like some people are still scared even today to mention other names, including that
like Steve Motsumi. And his name has come up again.
Absolutely. And the central role, in fact, maybe just on that Motsumi character, I hadn't known Motsumi until Madlanga Commission happened. And it turns out he's somebody who's well known, even within my circles. And I might have been in places where he was, but he comes across apparently somebody who's very humble and all. So to try and reconcile the fears that people had, and I'm talking about senior police officials, generals, the way that they couldn't want to invoke his name.
Like Senona.
Senona and others wouldn't want to invoke his name publicly. It just shows you the kind of society that we have become, where we have seamlessly seen the criminal elements integrate, or people who are flying closer to the sail, sailing closer to the wind, who are actually being able to intermingle with society as part of ordinary society, where even some of people, you tell them about Motsumi, they said, no, but this man is a very nice man. He helps us, he does it. But if you listen to the kind of things that they've been up to, it makes you worry. And it makes many other people shocked. So maybe the revelations will still unfold. I know that we're still going to hear from some of the alleged Big Five associates, including Sibanyoni, including many others that haven't yet appeared here. So it is an interesting epoch. And we want to believe that more exciting days lie ahead.
So it goes back to the terms of reference of the commission, that infiltration into the criminal justice system. What has been laid bare is, of course, that infiltration into the police. Someone like Sergeant Pani Nkosi, being an integral part of that network, and how things flowed from one end to the other. So clearly the police were infiltrated. That picture has become clear. What is perhaps not as clear is other parts of the criminal justice system in terms of infiltration from the alleged cartel.
I'm glad you're asking that question, Sakina, because it talks to the heart of what the other three elements of the criminal justice system are concerned. That is, on the one hand, we're looking at the police now, but we still have to look at the prosecutors intensely. But we now know that the Andrea Johnsons of this world were also doing wrong things. In other ways, they were infiltrated and captured. The one part is the magistracy and the judiciary itself, and including the correctional services. We know with the correctional services that there is allegations, and
we
actually
haven't touched the correctional services yet.
We haven't yet. We haven't even scratched the surface. So this has actually opened another layer and opened our eyes to the kind of skullduggery and capture of the criminal justice system. In fact, we haven't even begun to even engage on the prosecutors' roles in bail being granted so easily on heinous crimes, where they don't, not in most instances, they don't even oppose, or where they do, it is just flippant, just in passing that they will oppose the bail, but in actual fact they wouldn't. But not only that, even scrutinizing the amounts of bail, the sources of the bail money, where you have individuals who's an inkabi or an alleged inkabi who can afford bail of 50,000, 100,000, but they're not working. You ask yourself, as in the AKA murder case, for example, you ask yourself, how do you so, and they are compelled, by the way, it's a requirement by the FIC Act to actually know the source of those money. The attorneys on the one hand, and the prosecutors, they should actually be asking the attorneys to prove the provenance or the source of those money. And so far, those are the things that we don't actually even haven't discussed.
But to that point, if we look at all of these alleged illicit money flows that we are talking about, when you look at Tembisa Hospital, you're talking about 2 billion rand. When you look at the Tshwane tender by itself, you're talking hundreds of millions of rands. And one of the questions has been, so where was SARS? You mentioned the FIC. All of these transactions, were the relevant questions asked about where these monies come from and how they were flowing?
Yeah. The big question, where is SARS and where was SARS when these things, because SARS are quick to pick up, to detect any movement of money in your bank account and solve it. But we need to have SARS ears and eyes, even in courts, where they can be able to monitor the movement of cash, because in some instances, even cash is paid in to the lawyers' trust funds in cash, deposited in cash. It doesn't raise much thing. And then when the bail money is returned via electronics. So it could be that proceeds from dirty money or blood money actually find their way into the system and nobody asks a question, because SARS is not there to ask, okay, this money is origin was cash paid to a lawyer into a trust fund, into a legal defense fund. Now it's going to somebody. So those are the questions that SARS ought to be asking and asking itself as to what needs to be done and what can be done, because that actually creates the impunity with which the likes of the Ngabis and others know that we can do the harm. We know that somebody's going to bail us out, and nobody will ask the questions. And even if that money comes from illicit conduct or criminal conduct, certainly nobody's asked. So there is a role, and I'll be surprised if SARS is not having any watching brief on the proceedings of Matlala, or sort of Madlanga Commission. And it is a serious question that we need to interrogate and ask of ourselves: what role can SARS play? Where is SARS? Where was SARS? Exactly.
So we're into the last minute of this conversation, but in terms of what we can expect today and tomorrow from Vusimuzi Matlala, as you said right at the onset, he's been a bit cagey, trying not to divulge too much, but he is being pushed to give answers. So what do you think we will still get to hear from him?
Yeah, as I understand, he's not here today. He won't be here today. His testimony is postponed sine die. If I recall the conversation at the end of the hearings yesterday, there will be a new stream, I believe. I don't know what that new stream is, because it excludes the likes of Sibanyoni, whom we're still hoping and wishing he appears. So
do you think we'll get to hear from him?
We have to.
Maybe even Maumela, who's been mentioned
but
now.
it shouldn't stop
Motsumi.
there. We should also talk about the taxi bosses in KZN. The likes of the ones who are interacting with Msibi. I know that their names haven't been mentioned, but they're mentioned in hushed tones. They're mentioned around the AKA murder cases and all that, but we haven't had them here. And maybe those are the other Motsumis that we have people who instill fears in so many people.
Oh, I'm not sure whether we should be scared mentioning people's names so glibly, but we are simply repeating the names that we've heard here at the Commission. And Tebogo Khaas, thanks so much, our analyst this morning. And of course, we'll take your views as well at Morning Live SABC.